Today we're going to go out in the garden. Well, we're going to stay right here, but we're going to paint something from out in the garden. It's a wheelbarrow. Can you see it? It's a wheelbarrow, and it's filled to the brim with flowers and plants. Kind of like this one. It's all gouache. Well, not all gouache. I did use a little bit of watercolor to start it out, just to, well, you'll see. But anyway, I don't know what else to tell you. I'm not a gardener. Although, I am an amateur gardener. I'm an amateur painter also, by the way. So, hey, I don't know what else to say. I got my coffee. Believe it or not, it's still hot. And let's go paint. Thank you for watching. Here we go. Good morning. How are you today? I hope you're doing good. So today we're gonna paint with my messy palette of gouache. Many of these are dry, but they can be reactivated. But I did put some fresh, wet, a couple of greens, a yellow, mauve, or purple, I still call it purple. I think that one is blue, Prussian blue, and that one's some kind of red, and white, of course, and black. I don't like to use black much, but I'm not going to use it too dark in a color. I'm going to use it as black because there's a tire, as you know. So this is going to be a wheelbarrow full of flowers. So let's just do that. We'll start with the tire. I do have to sketch it. I'm going to have to sketch it. There's no way I can do this without sketching it. And I have no wheelbarrow of my own. I need to get a wheelbarrow. I really do need to get a wheelbarrow. There's so many places I need to transport the dirt from one place to the other that it's so much easier with a wheelbarrow than it is with a shovel, like one shovel full at a time, or a bucket. So this is a conversation I would never, I don't think so. I don't think I ever would have had this conversation when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I wasn't really spending any time in a garden. I wasn't spending any time because I wasn't a gardener. I was everything but a gardener. Yeah. So there's our tire. I hope that's a good tire. All right, then you get that thing that holds it on to the wheelbarrow. That thing, it's probably got a name. Everything has a name. I just don't know the name, but it's the thing that holds it on. Yeah, I have had in my youth, again, I'm not a gardener, but in my youth, my first job, in fact, was at a church, and I was like the custodian's helper. I got $40 a month. Can you imagine that? $40 a month. But it was good for me. And what does that have to do with gardening? Well, because in the job, a lot of the stuff that the custodian had to do was outside. You know, you had to cut the grass, and you had to trim the garden, actually trim the garden. And what I mean by trim the garden is pull the weeds and stuff like that. You know, I know you've been there. You've probably, and I do it now, but now it's voluntary. It's not a job. It's my own little world. Robin and I have a little garden. We have in the backyard. We have a big rock. In fact, it's not just a big rock, but it got bigger And you're saying to yourself, now, Papa, I would love to hear my little grandson say this to me, Papa, rocks don't grow. How did your rock get bigger? Well, let me explain, Lucy. Let me explain. We had a tree that was very, very big, and it needed to come down because otherwise there was going to be a storm one day that took it down, and that's not good because, well, you know, that's not good because it could hurt the house, it could hurt the people, it could fall in the car. There's so many things. A big old tree, it was an oak tree, what they call a live oak. Again, I'm not really a gardener, but we had it taken down. And for some reason, you know, who knew this? When they took it down, underneath it or around it or something were these two large rocks. And when I say they took it down, yes, it wasn't me. I didn't take it down. There's no way I could have done that. It was too big. So here's our wheelbarrow here, by the way. Trying to get through it. It almost looks like a baby carriage. Yeah, so when they took it down, it had these large rocks, two very large rocks. Not as large as the first one we had in the backyard, but like baby versions of the big rock, but still too big. You couldn't carry them. No, they had, you know, heavy equipment that they used to take down the tree, and they had heavy equipment that they used to carry the rocks. And where they put the rocks was on top of the old rock, the big rock. Well, they're all old. I guess that's something you can pretty much say unconditionally. All rocks are old. No, that's not true. I just thought of an exception to that. The truth is, some rocks are not old because they're made like out of the lava in Hawaii, right? And other places where there's volcanoes, right? There's new rocks. I just realized that. But anyway, so the rocks were old. So they put the two big rocks on top of the giant rock. How about I call them that? Big rocks and giant rocks. And, well, there's our wheelbarrow. Now, we want to fill it with flowers. We just want to just overflowing with flowers. So, and grass. This is going to be a fun one, I hope. Let me get a little sip of coffee. Got my coffee here. It's decaffeinated, by the way. Not that it matters, except I got used to it, put it that way. It's a doctor's thing. Doctors like to tell you what to do. So anyway, they put these big rocks on top of the giant rock. They put the big rocks in the giant rock, so it looks like the rock grew. The rock has grown, but obviously the rock didn't grow. But anyway, what does that have to do with the garden? So I just thought it would be fun, because the rock is now, it's not like uniform. It's got a lot of character to it. And I put some grass seed on top of the rock. I didn't, what do I know about stuff? Well, anyway, that grass seed started growing. And I noticed that the squirrels, once it was grass on top of that rock, the squirrels started hanging out on the rock. And then I would go outside and I would put peanuts, raw peanuts, on top of the rock where the squirrels were. Well, they wouldn't be there when I was out there. They'd run away. But you know what I mean. I'd put some peanuts up there for them, and they would come by and they would eat the peanuts. I'd sit on the porch and I could watch them. They didn't care if I was on the porch. I don't even know if they knew I was on the porch, but they would eat the peanuts. I loved doing that. And then one day, the guy who takes care of the lawn, he didn't know. He thought they were just weeds growing up there, and he put some herbicide on top of the rock. and all of my grass died. Isn't that crazy? All of the grass died. So then I didn't have a grassy rock anymore. So then what we decided to do, Robin and I, we decided to put some plants on the outside of the rock and put some, whoops, I'm going to use a little bit of watercolor, by the way. I know. I've heard you tell me a lot of times that this is not professional watercolor. But I looked it up. And right now I can't afford $144. This same thing in professional grade is $144 on the, what's it called, Winsor Newton website. So I said, well, I'll just stick to what I got here. Anyway, I think this is the green. I can't remember which the green is. Yeah, there it is. I just want to put a little wash of green everywhere, because this is basically going to be all green. I'm just going to spread the green. So we put these plants at the base of the rock, outside, not on top of it, but outside of it. And then we put these little plastic fences on the around it, so that the gardener guy, he's really not a gardener guy, he cuts the grass. He's really super nice, by the way. We always offer him water. And the other day, a piece of wood, a log got stuck under his lawnmower. It's a riding lawnmower. So a log got stuck under it, and I went out there to help him get that log out of there. I mean, he did the bulk of the work. I just brought him a mallet. I brought him a mallet. What else I bring? A crowbar. He was having a difficult time with that thing too. So I brought him some water, because it was super hot out there. So anyway, so we put these plants outside at the base of the rock, and this little fence around it, and they grow, and they're beautiful, and they attract hummingbirds. Isn't that cool? I don't know what they're called. Robin picked them out, but I just like them. And so I like looking at the hummingbirds when they come around. We have hummingbird feeders also. Yes, this is what happens when you get old. I think there's even something in the Bible that says that the things you liked when you were younger are not the same things you will like when you get older. Which of course, it's true. Everybody knows that. You're not still playing with Etch-a-Sketch, right? Well, maybe you are. Actually, I love Etch-a-Sketch. I shouldn't have used that as an example. All right, I see what I did. I just did a light wash right there with the watercolor. So one thing I want to address here before I get back to my little story. Somebody had commented that somebody asked, how do you keep the paper from buckling when it's wet? Well, it is buckling. It's impossible to stop it from buckling, but you can keep holding it down. I think it's wet. It buckles because it's wet and dry at the same time. Like part of it is wet, part of it is dry. But once it soaks in, it seems to be no problem. Right now, I'm going to paint what do I want to paint? This thing. I want to paint the wheel, but I gotta wait for the rest of it to dry. All right, let me turn off the camera. I'm gonna get my dryer. A couple of times I've used the dryer with the camera on. It's kind of noisy. I'll show it to you though. It's this. It's probably not the best one to get. It's very good for shrink wrap, which is what it's made for, but it gets too hot for paper. Almost looks like a big crayon. So I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to dry it, and I'll be right back. It's all dry now. Came out pretty nice. Nice, even green. So before I turned the camera back on, I looked up that quote in the Bible, and this is what it says. It says, when I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. when I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. And it's from the 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, for those who want to know. I had to look it up. I'm not a Bible expert by any means, but I just thought I'd share that with you. All right, back to the picture. And I wanted to continue my story about the rock. We got a big rock. All right, let me try to use this black here now. I'm going to use this black like watercolor. So I got to have it very thin. Thin it out a lot. Very thin. So the rock in the backyard, after we put the flowers underneath it, and the plants, like I said, started to attract butterflies and hummingbirds, and it was very cool. Very cool. And so then, because we had flowers and stuff there, I said to Robin, what if we just put more grass on top and see if the guy who cuts the grass will leave it alone. I mean, I didn't even say to him anything because I didn't want him to feel bad because he didn't know. So, you know how that goes. I should keep that light and this dark. Well, that's just going to be where the light is. So I'm going to have to put a second layer on there when it dries. So I thought, well, he probably won't put any herbicide on it because he sees that it'll drip off and it'll get to the plants. And he didn't put any herbicide on there. And then just when I talked to him the other day, when he broke down, when a piece of wood was stuck, that was my opportunity to say to him, by the way, thank you for not putting herbicide on the rock, because we're using it kind of like a garden, and it attracts the squirrels, and we kind of like that. So it is kind of like a mini ecosystem, I guess you would say. I'm using a little purple here, by the way, just to give it some character. I have to come back to this after it dries. Plus, I'm using gouache, so I can fill in there's little tiny holes in the wheel of the wheelbarrow. So I'll come back to it with the gouache to get that. Okay. Don't let that spread too much. Yeah, black is a dangerous color. You got to be very careful with black. Yep. But if you do it just right, sometimes it works. I know in art classes they say don't ever, ever, ever use black. I think what they should say is don't ever, ever use black as a way to darken a color. That would be my rule. And again, there's probably exceptions to that too. So, yeah, I prefer to darken a color with the complementary color. So if you want to darken green, you use red. If you want to darken red, you use green, if that makes sense. If you want to darken yellow, you use violet. What else? If you want to darken blue, what's the opposite of blue? Orange? Yeah. So that's kind of my way of thinking about it. Okay, just grabbing little pieces of this paint, come around here. So I have so now we have this garden, and we have these potted plants also on the porch, which sort of is like a garden. When I sit out there, it feels like I'm in a garden. And then you can look out and you can see the big rock, and you see the hummingbird feeders and the natural things that attract the hummingbirds. And I will tell you, just like the Bible verse says about saying things when you're older, or whatever, it's true. When I was younger, I never would have had an interest in sitting outside looking at the birds, looking at the plants, So listening to the wind. Well, maybe that. Maybe I like listening to the wind. I don't really know. All right, I'm just trying to create some shadows here on these things. As long as I got a little bit of black on the brush, which actually becomes gray in its watered down form. So I'll add a little bit of purple to it. There's the purple. Just going to spread that little purple. And then we'll be able to cover it with some of the colors of the plants that are going to be draping over the sides. Purple water, purple wheelbarrow. Just let the light come from the back, from the other side of it. The side can be all in the shadows. So don't ask me what plants we have. Let me see if I can remember some of them. I remember in the potted plant section. Now, I don't know what Robin has under the rock. In the potted plant section, we have a peperonia. I am not an expert on this, but I happen to remember that name because it reminded me of pepperoni. And, well, I love pizza, so of course I'm going to remember the name pepperoni. And the peperonia plant was a gift. It was a gift from a local nursery when Robin and I did the radio show. Well, there's some big truck out there or something. When we did the radio show, we would talk to these different people, and one of them was a local nursery, and they brought me, as a gift, they brought me the peperonia, which is a very thick leaf, has a very, very leafy leaf, if that makes sense. Not leafy, that's not the right word. It's just thick. It's almost like plastic. And they gave it as a gift. And then one day, I noticed it was capturing the attention of some gnats. And there were gnats in the studio all over the place. And so I put it outside. And there was a little garden outside of the radio station, by the way. Nothing I did. It was just part of the office complex. There was a garden. So I put it in that garden to get the gnats away from the studio. I was blaming it on the plant, but I really think it was... I think somebody was putting coffee into the plant, is what I think. I think somebody was watering it with their coffee. Does that sound like a crazy thing? But I do think that's what was happening. So, just adding a little black there to kind of accentuate that shadow. I guess I am using black. See? Never say never about anything. It just looks right. It just looks like a great way to make a shadow there. Put a little bit of roughness to this wheel here, this tire. Right, that seems to work. Maybe a little bit more depth to that shadow right there. Yeah. Start to put a little bit of grass behind it. All right. So in the winter, even though we're in Florida, it does get cold here. It does, and it got so cold that it was freezing outside, and I forgot to bring in the peperonia. And then Robin remembered it, and she brought it in, and it looked like I had ruined it, and I felt like, oh no, I ruined the peperonia. But then it came back to life, It was really kind of incredible. All right, now I got to think how to do this background because I want to put the flowers on it. Let me just go ahead and add some more to the background now. Just add some more green. What I want to do is I want to keep this whole area here filled, empty foot, so I can put flowers in there and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of see if I can dab it in there, and then we'll come back and do this one in pieces. Put some shade and some light and some dark. So now the pepperonia lives here, and it is wonderful. So that's one plant I can identify in our back porch garden, which is about as much as I know about it. Now, I do know some of the other plants. One of the other plants is, what do you call it? Oh, what do they give people when somebody dies? Drawing a blank. A lily. Yeah, a lily. I can't remember what it's called. Peace lily or something? So, yeah, so there's a lily in there, out there. And that lily is over 5 years old. And I got it because my brother died in May 5 years ago. So it's been just over 5 years. He died in Arizona. So Robin's son sent me the lily. And I still have it. I keep it watered. So I know that one. Now I also have a cactus out there. Yes, and if we were living in Arizona, we could have some really great cactus. But we live in Florida, and we do have different kinds of cactus, I guess, that happen naturally here. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of this dark here, just to start the grass, not the grass, but the plants that are inside the wheelbarrow. Yeah, so he sent me that, and I still have it, and I love it. It's a kind of a reminder of my brother Bob. And that's it. That's all there is to say about that one. And, I started telling you about the cactus. So the cactus is also a memory for my brother Bob because he, like I say, lived in Arizona. That's where he passed away. And so I bought this little tiny cactus in Walgreens. It was like 99 cents. It was an inch. I am not exaggerating. It was an inch. And I just kept it and kept, watering it. And I know you're not supposed to water a cactus much, but I did. But I just let it grow. Now that front of that wheelbarrow probably has to have some color to it. I'll get to that later. Let me get some of these greens here, some of these yellows. We'll start to make all this happen here. All these plants that are going to be in this wheelbarrow. So I got to get the background grass kind of out of focus. So now the cactus that I was telling you about it's got to be 5 feet tall. It's huge, and it's in a pot, so it's very heavy. So whenever I have to move it, like when there's a hurricane coming or a bad wind, you get these big wind advisories in the weather report, and you have to move it. So if you guys want to, I wouldn't mind if you shared your gardening stories, or any stories really, on the Facebook page. That's what the Facebook page is for. It's for us to have the community of artists. I had this change of an idea to change the labeling on these videos, because I didn't know what to call them. I put how to paint this, how to paint that, and I thought to myself, that's not really true. I don't want to show you how to paint things, because I want you to paint them your own way. So I just changed it to how I paint, or how I painted. How I painted a wheelbarrow filled with flowers. And then you can do it your own way. I'd rather we all have our own individual approaches, our own individual style, and our own individual look. I am back and forth between gouache and watercolor. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's what I'm doing. All right, so I told you I know the cactus. I don't know what kind of cactus it is, but it's a cactus. And then there's the peace lily, and then there's the peperonia. And I do think that's it. I don't know the names of any of the other ones. Robin knows their names. I could give them names. I could call them, Johnny and Clyde, and I could name them the Poppa plant. I used to kid with my son before I was a Poppa. Isn't this funny? I just thought of this. Before I was actually a Poppa. See, my son is the dad now. I'm the Poppa to his little boy. But I used to kid with him that we had a CB in the car, a CB radio, and I used to tell him my handle was Poppa the Trunk. When you pop the trunk on, you say pop the trunk. So that was kind of like my little joke. So yeah, I was Poppa before I was Poppa. I forgot about that. Yeah. Time goes by, right? It's kind of cool how this watercolor is working nicely with this gouache. Of course, we're not there yet with the colors. Wait till we put the colors in. That's when it's going to pop. That's when we're going to have this really, hopefully, a really amazing look here. I'll put some of the yellow in now while I can, while I'm thinking of it. And yes, this is going to be very impressionistic. I am definitely approaching this in an impressionistic way. The Van Gogh thing. I like that song by Don McLean, Starry, Starry Night. Oh no, that's not the name of the song. The name of the song is Vincent. Yeah. Starry, Starry Night is the name of the painting, right? Starry, Starry Night. Paint your palette blue and gray. Look out on a sunny day, or something like that. With eyes that see the something. I'll have to look it up. Oh, by the way, I did look up something for gardening. It's a blessing by a lady named Dorothy Frances Gurney. I wonder if she's related to James Gurney. If you don't know James Gurney, you gotta check him out. If you like watching these videos, oh my gosh, James Gurney is the absolute master. He is. So look up James Gurney. But anyway, this is a blessing by Dorothy Frances Gurney, and I'm going to read it to you. Okay? It's only 4 lines. The kiss of the sun for pardon, the song of the birds for mirth. One is nearer God's heart in a garden than anywhere else on earth. So there you go. That is the Gardener's Blessing, written by Dorothy Frances Gurney. So now you know. And I don't know if that's James Gurney's wife or mother. I honestly don't know. Okay. Make some more darkness back here. purposely trying to keep a lot of these areas so there's a little bit of contrast here. Can you hear the crow outside? The crows are always out there. When you put peanuts down on the ground for the, well, I give them for everybody. That's not just for the squirrels, but that was the original intent. The crows come and get them first. Yeah, the squirrels, they're lucky if they get any. By the time the crows come down, oh my gosh, those guys, they can see those peanuts from a mile away, I think. Yeah, this is gonna make this very wispy here. And we gotta have it coming off the side too. So we're gonna make some of that green happen off the side of the. We can always define it better later on. Just get it hanging off the side here and off the front. I probably should paint the front before I start adding stuff to it. So today is Thursday. I don't know what I'm doing later on today. It's funny how I do these paintings in the morning, and I'm so glad I do, because there's always something that happens later on. You know, you have to run, like the other day, I had to go to Orlando. It's it takes a big hunk out of your day. You have to take a road trip like that. So I think I'll keep that part light. Let me grab another brush and paint some color onto this side here. I think I'll do a very, very light version of that purple. I think I have a good purple in here. Is that purple? No, that's brown. Which one is the purple? I think this is the purple here. Okay, that's not going to work. I have to make this dark here. Let me get this very wet. I just kind of want to wash. I don't really want to color it, really. Yeah, that works. Just keep it very light. I just didn't want it perfectly white. Just kind of lighter than that part. Let's see, a little more darkness underneath the edge of the wheelbarrow. Yeah. I'll take some of this blue green. Those little holes in the wheel. Maybe a little bit of darkness here to define the rim. I have to get the mechanism that holds the wheel in place. Here we go. I can always add some white to that to make it look a little better. I think that looks good. That looks good. All right, we'll work the background a little bit more because I want the background to be a lot darker. I want some of this foreground to be darker too. Just kind of reactivate some of this dried gouache. And then as it dries more, I can always add some lighter colors because with gouache you can do that. Just a few blotches here to give the sense of real darkness back there, some depth to the growth behind it, the other side of the garden. When Robin and I did the radio show, we had a lady, and she still does it. Her name is Carol Ann, and Carol Ann does a gardening show. We're on the radio, and she answers questions about gardens. So, for the whole time I worked there, anytime we had a question about a garden, I mean, we had like a built-in expert who could answer those questions. It's kind of a nice thing. We had a built-in expert with a few subjects. We had lawyers that would come in. We had chiropractors who would come in. We had real estate experts who would come in, and yeah, so we kind of had our own little. If you had a question, we had a mechanic who came in. And he's still my mechanic, by the way, even though I don't work there anymore. Yeah, he replaced my whole transmission. Oh, let me tell you, that was a blessing. Talk about God helping you out through other people. I don't know if that's in the Bible or not, but that's what I think. I think God helps us out through other people. All right, is this starting to look the way I want it to look? Again, it's very impressionistic, and that was the idea. The idea was to keep it impressionistic. Just gonna dot it around here. Have you ever read the story about the Impressionists and how they were not accepted in the beginning? Yeah, they were not. The art, the established art community didn't like the impressionistic approach because they felt like it looked like unfinished art. Because back then, there was no such thing as a camera. And so art in their world had to look exactly like what you were painting. You couldn't have impressionism. It just didn't make sense to the status quo. I love that word, status quo. It just didn't make sense to them. So they you gotta read this. I don't know. Maybe it was Monet. That was one of the ones that was grouped into that, and I think it was Monet. But anyway, they were shunned. They were not accepted. And now, of course, they're revered because now we have photography. So you really don't need to be doing art that looks like a photograph. You can. Nothing wrong with it. I've done my share of that stuff, and some of it I'm proud of, but the funny thing is, people say, oh, it looks like a photograph. And especially when you're doing digital art, people think that you didn't really do it. You took a photograph and you just manipulated it. So that's why I kind of drifted toward the good old-fashioned paint on paper, or paint on canvas, if you will, sometimes. I still do that. I don't think I've done much of it on this channel, but I still do it. So like everything else in this world, when somebody has something new, a lot of times the status quo doesn't like it. And it's just, I guess it's a matter of time to see if it's going to work or not, if it's going to be something that people like. You know, you have to give things a chance, I guess. Makes sense to me. Okay, I'm just trying to get these little leaves and these little branches that are creeping over the side here. Because this is all on the shadowed side, so I want them to be dark with a little bit of light capturing. And then when we get to the flowers, that's going to be the fun part. Right now we're just laying all the groundwork for this. What do you think so far? I'm guessing that in the world of music, there's also been, but there's probably some stories. Well, yeah, obviously, when I talk about when there's a new form of music and the status quo doesn't like it, doesn't think it's good. I mean, isn't that the way it's always been with music? What I'm not a big fan of, it's not the style that gets to me, but sometimes they have, like we went to the car wash yesterday, and there was a car with the music on so loud. And you know, when I was a kid, I played music loud too, so it's not really how loud it was. But let me tell you something. Some of these words that were in the songs, I mean, they were very, I'm not a prude, but they were pretty offensive too, especially if you had like a little child there. And there was a little girl there. She looked like a Girl Scout age, you know? And I just thought, wow, that little girl's being exposed to those words of that song, and it wasn't nice. Robin said it was disrespectful. I think that's a good word. It was disrespectful. I said to Robin, why don't we go get a big sound system, and when we hear something like that again, we can put on the Carpenters. What do you think would happen? We try to drown them out with the Carpenters. I think that would be funny. Or John Denver. Drown him out with John Denver. Or better yet, how about like drown him out with Jimmy Dorsey or Glenn Miller? Oh, that would be kind of a funny thing. All right, now see what I did? I kept that light because I don't know what I'm doing there yet. But I wanted to... All right, I got to clean this brush without getting the water too dirty, because I don't want the water dirty, because I want to be able to use it. Sometimes I like dirty water, because dirty water serves it well in painting. But right now is the fun part. Now is the fun part. I don't think I can do it while it's wet, but it really doesn't look that wet. That's one of the reasons I'm using gouache today, is because I knew I was going to do this. All right, let's start adding yellow. Let's make the yellow the first color. Got to clean this brush. We want pure yellow. Let's get the wet yellow and just put a lot of little like pieces of reaching out into the above the wheelbarrow. So we have these what look like leaves just catching the light of the sun. Can you see them? Can you see it starting to happen? We'll have some coming off there. Just have them from everywhere. Little leaves. I might even put some white in there just to exaggerate it a little bit more. There's lots of leaves. Just pound. So when I go to the actual garden that not my garden, but the nursery garden, I always take pictures because that's a great reference. That's a great reference. You just take your camera everywhere. Which, by the way, somebody was asking about how do you use reference photos and not violate the copyright laws? Well, here's the answer to that question. This is my answer. I don't know if there's something I'm going to say that's not legal, but I don't think you should be copying a picture anyway, even if it's a picture you took. I think you should be using it as a reference, just as a way to have some idea of what you want to do, and then make the painting your own. The painting doesn't have to look like the photograph. So now if you're doing a portrait of somebody, which, by the way, the portrait of Princess Kate I saw yesterday on the cover of some magazine, it didn't look like her very much. But that's what you have to do. You have to make it look like the person, you know? So then you do have to make it look. But you can still stylize it, you know? You can still do your own thing. That's what I would encourage anyway. Alright, I'm just doing lots of these. Let me take some white. Whoa, the white's drying already. Come on. It has a film over it. Alright, I'm gonna take some of that white and make some of these little. When you get an arrangement of flowers from a florist, they always put baby's breath in it. Have you ever smelled baby's breath? I don't mean a real baby. I mean, have you ever smelled the breath? I mean the plant called baby's breath. It does have a very pretty smell to it. If that's a true thing, can you say a pretty smell? I don't know if that's true or not. But yeah, some of these little leaves here. Just kind of drag it across. Little leaves here and there. They should be everywhere. Poking out the side. Poking over the edge here. Just little pieces of flowers here. Let's go back to the yellow. One way to prevent the paint from drying, like I use this on acrylic a lot. If you're using acrylic paint or any, like the gouache, and you don't want it to dry, a spray bottle does a good job. Or you can, like right now I don't have my palette, I don't have a wet paper towel under it, but you could do that too. There's a couple of different ideas that you could use. So I'm gonna make a little bit of yellow green here. Very light green. Just have it hanging over the edge here. Just overflowing with flowers. All right, now let's go for the deep blues here. Put them in there. keep room for some flowers. See, I'm purposely keeping room for some of the bright reds that we're just a few minutes away from putting those reds in there. There's some more little highlights here. Okay, now let's go ahead and do the reds. I'm going to use a different brush for that. Let me clean off this brush as much as I can. Just keep it wet. Yeah. You know what? I'll just use the same brush. All right, ready for the reds? Let's see how this works out. I'm going to make some pinks too. I'm going to mix white and red together, I think. Oh yeah, that's nice. You know what? I'll do that first. I'll put these reds in there as pinks, and then I'll put red on top of it. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. And you see, I'm not actually painting like each flower. I don't even know if you'll be able to identify what these flowers are. You won't, because it's just the impression of flowers. The impression. I went into the hospital the other day visiting somebody who was in the hospital, and on the wall they have these beautiful pastel paintings of landscapes. And you know, if you step back, it looks exactly like what it's supposed to look like. But if you get very close, you see that it's not, there's no detail at all. It's all very impressionistic. And that is so cool, I think. And it's a beautiful thing when you do it with pastel. And hopefully it's beautiful with gouache also. You get some of this purple. Mix some purple with the white. See if I get some purple flowers in there. There's a few violet colors. Let's get some of this red over here. And some of these flowers are reaching way out. In the back here too. There's no reason these flowers would stay put. They're going to be all over the place. I imagine that this wheelbarrow is either in the garden just by itself, or it's being transported someplace to plant these flowers. I don't think so. I think this wheelbarrow is just like my rock. It's a stationary thing, and it sits there as a place for the plants to grow. Just adding a little bit of darkness now to make it a little deeper looking. And yes, I'm using black for that. I know, I'm breaking all the rules. I think the rules are a problem, because sometimes painting rules, I mean, not all rules, I mean painting rules are a problem sometimes, because ultimately if you don't do something just because you think there's a rule you shouldn't, then you're going to miss an opportunity to experiment, and you're going to miss an opportunity to be creative in a different way maybe than It's just like right now, that black is looking pretty good. It's doing a good job holding those colors. Now what I have to do, because I don't have much contrast between the foreground and the background, so I think the background needs to be darker. So I'm going to go ahead and, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm just going to go ahead and add some more darkness to the background. Not everywhere, just a little bit to kind of give us something to be bright up against. And then I'll add some more light colors to it. And make sure some of these whites stay there. Yeah, I think that's working. Just darken that background a little bit. It's just not quite as contrasted as it needs to be to make it pop, to make it look like it's got all these brilliant, brilliant flowers. Yeah, it's starting to happen. Starting to come together. Alright, let's go back to this tire. Give that a little bit more depth. And take one of these, a little bit of white here. Use the skinny brush. Just a little bit of white right there. Maybe right there. There we go. Take some of this green and this yellow, mix it together, make it very, very light. Make sure some of this grass is growing here, growing around it. And then we'll take some of this and put it up against that dark. And add some more red here. Put some more red flowers in here. Yep, everybody's getting ready to go to work now. It's 7:20, so yeah, this is about the time you start to hear the motorcycles and the trucks. A few little wisps here and there. And I think for the final little piece here, use this tiny brush. It's not tiny, but small enough. Go ahead and get some little wisps of white in here. Make some yellow in there too. Now you can see how it really is impressionistic when I start doing stuff like this. If I mix a little bit of yellow and red, I can get some orange. I don't have any oranges in there. You can see if I can make a little bit of orange happen in there. Just a little bit. Okay, I think it's done. I think our wheelbarrow garden picture greeting card is done. And it's still got a lot of wet paint on it. I'm going to give it a shot, see if I can fold it without messing it up too much. Let's see what it looks like as a card. There. There's our wheelbarrow garden. I kind of like it. What do you think? You see it? Try to put it in the camera. Well. I guess I like it. I'm not really 100% sure, but there it is. The wheelbarrow garden. All right, kids, I guess I'm going to go. Talk to you later. Thank you for subscribing, for liking, for commenting. Join the Facebook page. I'll put that stuff underneath it. And I'll talk to you